Muscle cars, raw power, American pride, the rumble that makes your chest vibrate. But some of these so-called legends? They're money pits disguised as horsepower dreams. Today, we're counting down 10 muscle cars that'll empty your wallet faster than a divorce lawyer. Let's get into it. Number 10. Pontiac GTO, 2004 to 2006. The Australian Imposter. Remember when Pontiac tried to resurrect the legendary GTO nameplate? Yeah, they did it by slapping Pontiac badges on an Australian Holden Monaro and calling it heritage. This thing is about as authentic as a $3 bill. Under the hood sits an LS1 V8 pumping out 345 horsepower, which sounds decent until you realize this boat weighs 3,700 pounds. That's heavier than most modern SUVs. The later 2005 to 2006 models got the LS2 with 400 horses, but by then, nobody cared anymore. These cars cost $33,000 new, which was Corvette money, and buyers quickly figured out they'd rather have the Vetta. The interior is pure corporate GM parts bin special with cheap plastics and a dashboard that looks like it was designed by accountants. Build quality is all over the place, with squeaks and rattles developing faster than your regrets about buying one. The worst part? These things have depreciated like a stone dropped in the ocean. You can find them for $12,000 now, and even at that price, they're hard to sell. Pontiac thought slapping a legendary name on a rebadged import would fool enthusiasts. It didn't. The real GTOs from the 60s and 70s are climbing in value while these imposters collect dust in driveways, reminding their owners that nostalgia doesn't work when the product is fake. Parts are getting scarce since Pontiac died in 2010, and good luck explaining to your buddies at the car show why your GTO has right-hand drive engineering underneath. Number 9. Dodge Magnum SRT-8, 2006 to 2008. The confused station wagon. Dodge looked at the station wagon and thought, you know what this needs? A 425 horsepower Hemi and a complete identity crisis. The Magnum SRT-8 is what happens when your midlife crisis wants to haul groceries. This thing packs a 6.1-liter Hemi V8, pushing 425 horses through all-wheel drive, which sounds amazing until you remember you're driving a wagon that weighs 4,400 pounds. That's right, you're hauling around the weight of 2 Honda Civics. Fuel economy is catastrophic at 13 city, 18 highway, meaning you'll be on first-name basis with your local gas station attendant. The handling is exactly what you'd expect from a 2-ton wagon trying to be a muscle car, mushy and vague with enough body roll to make passengers seasick. The interior tries to be sporty with bolstered seats and carbon fiber trim, but it's still a Dodge from the mid-2000s, which means hard plastics that scratch if you breathe on them. The third-row cargo area is genuinely useful, which is great when you're hauling parts to fix all the problems these develop. The Hemi is thirsty and expensive to maintain, the all-wheel drive system adds complexity and repair costs, and the suspension bushings wear out faster than your patience at the pump. Insurance companies charge muscle car rates for a vehicle that's technically a family hauler, giving you the worst of both worlds. These sold for $40,000 new and are worth maybe $15,000 today if you find someone who wants to explain to their spouse why they bought a grocery getter that does burnouts. The Magnum SRT-8 is proof that just because you can stuff a big engine in something doesn't mean you should. It's a compromise that satisfies nobody, too impractical for muscle car guys and too thirsty for wagon enthusiasts. Number 8. Buick GNX, 1987, the turbocharged time bomb. The Buick GNX is legendary, we'll give it that. It's also a 37-year-old turbocharged science experiment that costs more to maintain than a small yacht. Built in 1987 as Buick's final middle finger to the muscle car era, only 547 were made, which sounds exclusive until you realize that's 547 ticking time bombs waiting to strand you. Under the hood sits a turbocharged 3.8-liter V6, making 276 horsepower, the though the real number was closer to 300. Back in '87, this thing was faster than a Corvette, running 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. Today, it's a $150,000 museum piece that you're terrified to drive. The turbo technology is primitive by modern standards, meaning when it breaks, and it will break, you're hunting for parts that haven't been made since Reagan was president. The electronics are pure '80s General Motors, which is a polite way of saying they fail constantly. Dashboard displays die, sensors quit, and the onboard computer throws codes that nobody can decipher anymore. The transmission is a 204R that was already outdated in 1987, and finding someone who can rebuild it properly is like finding a unicorn. These cars sold for $29,000 new, which was insane money in '87, and people paid it because Buick said only 547 would exist. Now they're six figures, which means you're paying $150,000 for a car you can't drive, can't modify, and can't even look at without worrying about depreciation. The GNX is the automotive equivalent of a Beanie Baby, valuable only because people decided it should be, not because it's actually worth the money. Sure, it's a piece of history, but so is my grandmother's rotary phone, and I'm not spending my retirement fund on that either. Number 7. Chrysler 300C SRT8, 2005 to 2010. The luxury boat, pretending to be muscle. Chrysler took their big luxury sedan, stuffed a Hemi in it, and convinced people it was a muscle car. The 300C SRT8 is what happens when you want to look like a mob boss but drive like you're late for the early bird special. This thing weighs 4,250 pounds, which is more than some pickup trucks, powered by a 6.1-liter Hemi V8, making 425 horsepower. On paper, that sounds impressive. In reality, you're driving a cruise ship with decent acceleration. The 300C tries to be everything at once and ends up being nothing special. It wants to be luxurious with leather seats and navigation systems that were outdated when new. It wants to be sporty with the SRT badge and upgraded suspension. It wants to be intimidating with that aggressive front grille. Instead, it's just heavy, expensive, and drinks premium fuel like it's going out of style. Fuel economy is a laughable 13 city, 18 highway, and that's if you drive like your grandmother on the way to church. Real-world numbers with the heavy right foot this thing tempts you into are closer to 11 miles per gallon. The Hemi engine is reliable enough, but maintenance costs are brutal because everything on this car is supersized. Brake jobs cost twice what they should. Tires are expensive performance rubber that wears out in 20,000 miles. And the all-wheel drive system adds another layer of complexity and expense. The interior is nice for a mid-2000s Chrysler, which is like saying it's the best hospital food you've ever had. Plenty of fake wood and leather, but build quality is typical Chrysler, meaning things start breaking right around 60,000 miles. These sold for $45,000 new and are worth maybe $12,000 today, a depreciation curve steeper than your blood pressure when you see the gas bill. The 300C SRT8 is a car for people who want muscle car bragging rights without actually wanting a muscle car, and it shows. Number 6. Cadillac CTS-V, first generation, 2004 to 2007. The German fighter that couldn't. Cadillac looked at BMW's M5 and thought, we can do that with good old American V8 power. The first generation CTS-V was their answer, and like most first attempts, it was rushed, flawed, and expensive to own. Under the hood sits the legendary LS6 V8 from the Corvette Z06, making 400 horsepower and 395 pound-feet of torque. That engine is bulletproof and fantastic. Everything around it? Not so much. The transmission is a Tremec T 56 6-speed manual that's agricultural at best, with a shifter that feels like you're stirring concrete. Most came with a 4-speed automatic that shifts like it's considering its options before every gear change. The chassis is borrowed from the regular CTS, which was designed for luxury, not performance, so Cadillac stiffened everything and called it sporty. The result is a ride that's harsh on bad roads and still doesn't handle as well as the Germans it was trying to beat. The interior is peak mid-2000s GM, meaning lots of hard plastics, buttons that feel cheap, and a navigation system that belongs in a museum. These cars have more electrical problems than a British sports car, with issues ranging from failed wheel speed sensors to dead instrument clusters to malfunctioning stability control systems. The rear differential is a known weak point, especially if you do burnouts, which is the entire point of having 400 horsepower. Fixing it costs $3,000 if you're lucky. Parts are expensive because they're performance parts with Cadillac markups, and insurance companies charge accordingly. These sold for $50,000 new, which was actually competitive with the Germans, but resale value is brutal. You can find them for $15,000 now, and at that price, you're just buying someone else's deferred maintenance. The first-gen CTS-V had the right idea, but the wrong execution. A pattern Cadillac would repeat until they finally figured it out in later generations. If you're enjoying this countdown of muscle car mistakes, do me a favor. Smash that like button, drop a comment telling me which of these you've actually seen at your local Cars and Coffee, and subscribe so you don't miss our next video. We've got plenty more automotive reality checks coming your way. Now let's get back to the countdown. Number 5. Oldsmobile 442, 1990s Revival, the comeback nobody wanted. In the 1990s, Oldsmobile decided to resurrect the legendary 442 nameplate because nothing says performance like a brand everyone associates with your grandfather's favorite car. The 90s 442 was based on the Cutlass Supreme, which should tell you everything you need to know about how wrong this went. They stuffed a 5.7-liter V8 under the hood, making around 180 horsepower, which is pathetic even by early 90s standards. That's the same power as a modern Honda Accord, except the 442 weighs 3,500 pounds and handles like a waterbed on wheels. The styling tried to be aggressive with ground effects and spoilers, but it just looked like someone raided the J.C. Whitney catalog and stuck everything on a family sedan. The interior was pure Oldsmobile rental car special with gray cloth seats, plastic wood trim, and a dashboard designed by people who'd given up on life. These cars were front-wheel drive, which is already sacrilege for a muscle car nameplate, and the torque steer was so bad you needed both hands on the wheel during hard acceleration. Not that you'd accelerate hard often, because the transmission was a mushy 4-speed automatic that thought 3,000 RPM was aggressive. GM built these thinking baby boomers would pay $25,000 for nostalgia. But buyers weren't stupid. They saw through the charade immediately. The original 442s from the 60s and 70s are collectible legends climbing in value every year. These 90s imposters are worth about $3,000 if they run, less if they don't, which is often because Oldsmobile build quality in the 90s was absolutely atrocious. Electrical problems, transmission failures, and engine issues plagued these from day one. The 5.7-liter V8 was the same basic architecture as the legendary small block, but by the 90s it was strangled by emissions equipment and corporate cost-cutting. These cars are slow, boring, unreliable, and embarrassing. A trifecta of terrible that ensures they'll never be collectible. If you see one at a car show, it's either owned by someone who doesn't know better or someone with a very specific sense of ironic humor. Number 4. Ford Torino Cobra, late 1960s, early 1970s. The heavyweight bruiser. The Ford Torino Cobra had all the ingredients for muscle car greatness: big engines, aggressive styling, factory backing, and NASCAR. So why is it on this list? Because these things are massively overpriced for what you actually get behind the wheel. Built from 1968 to 1971, the Torino Cobra came with serious engine options, including the 428 Cobra Jet and the legendary 429 Super Cobra jet. On paper, you've got 335 to 375 horsepower, though everyone knew those were lowball numbers for insurance purposes. In reality, you're looking at well over 400 horses. Sounds amazing, right? Here's the problem. These cars weigh between 3,800 and 4,200 pounds, depending on options, making them some of the heaviest muscle cars of the era. That weight kills the handling worse than disco killed rock and roll. The suspension is pure 1960s Detroit, meaning soft springs, terrible body roll, and brakes that couldn't stop a go-kart effectively. Collectors pay insane money for rare specifications, sometimes $80,000 or more, for a numbers-matching Cobra jet car. That's Corvette money, Charger money, even some Chevelle money for a car that's awkward to drive and expensive to maintain. Parts availability is hit or miss, with trim pieces and interior components particularly hard to find. The 429 engine parts are getting scarce and expensive because collectors are hoarding them. Insurance companies know these are valuable now, so coverage is expensive, even though reliability is questionable at best. The interior is typical Ford of that era, meaning it falls apart if you look at it wrong. Dashboard cracks, door panels warp, and seats collapse like cheap lawn furniture. These cars are amazing in straight-line acceleration, utterly terrifying in corners, and impractical for anything resembling regular use. They're great for bragging about displacement and horsepower numbers at car shows. Terrible for actually driving anywhere you might need to turn or stop. The Torino Cobra is a car that looks better in photos than it drives in reality, and people are paying collector prices for the privilege of being disappointed. Number 3. Mercury Marauder, 2003 to 2004. The undercover mistake. Mercury looked at the Ford Crown Victoria Police Interceptor and thought, what if we made this for civilians who want to cosplay as undercover cops? The Marauder is what happens when that idea actually makes it to production. Built on the ancient Panther platform that dated back to 1979, the Marauder tried to be a sleeper muscle sedan. It succeeded at being a sleeper in that nobody noticed it, nobody wanted it, and even Mercury fell asleep on marketing it. Under the hood sits a 4.6-liter DOHC V8, making 302 horsepower, which sounds adequate until you realize this land yacht weighs 4,500 pounds. That's heavier than a modern Ford F-150. The performance is leisurely at best, 0 to 60 in 7.5 seconds, which is slower than a V6 Honda Accord from the same year. Fuel economy is abysmal at 13 city, 20 highway, giving you the worst of both worlds. Muscle car gas bills without muscle car performance. The interior is pure Crown Vic, with slightly nicer seats and some aluminum trim pieces. You still get the same cheap plastics, the same awkward driving position, and the same sense that you should be writing traffic tickets instead of enjoying yourself. The styling is so subtle, it's invisible, which some people claimed was the point, but really just meant nobody knew what you were driving or why you'd paid $35,000 for it. Mercury built these for only 2 years because sales were disastrous. They moved about 11,000 units total, and most of those were to die-hard Mercury fans and people confused about what they were buying. Today, these things are worth maybe $10,000 if you find the right buyer, which you won't because nobody's looking for a Marauder. Parts are cheap because they share everything with Crown Vics and Grand Marquis, but that's not exactly a selling point. Number 2. Chevrolet SSR, 2003 to 2006. The Midlife Crisis Mobile. We covered this disaster in our Worst American Cars video, but it deserves special recognition in the muscle car category for trying to be something it absolutely wasn't. The SSR stands for Super Sport Roadster, but it should stand for stupid, slow, ridiculous. Chevy tried to create a retro-styled convertible pickup truck with hot rod flare and somehow made it worse than that description sounds. Early models came with a 5.3-liter V8, making 300 horsepower, which sounds decent until you remember this thing weighs 4,700 pounds. That's nearly 2.5 tons of retro-style disappointment. Later models got a 6.0-liter V8 with 390 horses, which helped acceleration but killed fuel economy even worse. You're looking at 13 city, 18 highway, and those are optimistic numbers. The truck bed is so small and awkward you can't actually haul anything useful, defeating the entire purpose of having a pickup. The retractable hardtop is cool for about 5 minutes, then it becomes a maintenance nightmare that costs thousands to fix when it breaks. And it will break, because it's a complex power mechanism on a vehicle that shares parts with the Trailblazer. The interior is pure GM parts bin, special with plastics that feel cheap, switches that came from a Cavalier, and a driving position that's somehow both too high and too cramped. Visibility is terrible with massive blind spots everywhere, and the ride quality is harsh despite the truck suspension. These things sold for $42,000 to start, climbing over $50,000 with options, which is utterly insane for what you got. Today, they're worth $15,000 if you're lucky, representing depreciation that would make a new BMW blush. Number 1. Pontiac Trans Am WS6, late 1990s. The Plastic Fantastic. The 4th generation Firebird Trans Am WS6 should be a hero car. It's got the LS1 V8, making between 305 and 325 horsepower depending on the year. It's got the Ram Air hood. It's got T-tops and that aggressive front fascia. It was even in movies looking tough and fast. So why is it number 1 on our list of dumb muscle car purchases? Because people are paying stupid money for these thinking they're investing in the next big collectible, and they're dead wrong. These cars are everywhere. Pontiac built thousands of them from 1993 to 2002, and most are still running around because the LS1 engine is bulletproof. The problem isn't reliability of the drivetrain, it's everything else. The interior is pure 1990s GM garbage, with plastic so cheap it squeaks when you sit down. The dashboard cracks if you park in sunlight. The door panels rattle from the factory. The headliner sags like an old man's belly. The T-tops leak, guaranteed, turning your interior into a swimming pool every time it rains. People are asking $20,000 or more for clean examples, thinking these will be the next C4 Corvette value story. They won't. There are too many of them. They're too new to be truly classic, and they're not special enough to justify collector prices. The WS6 package added $3,000 to the base price when new for essentially some suspension tweaks and hood scoops. Today, sellers act like it's made of gold. The LS1 engine is fantastic, but you can find it in Corvettes, Camaros, and even some trucks. It's not special to the Trans Am. Insurance is expensive because these are categorized as sports cars, even though most owners are middle-aged guys reliving high school. Parts are getting scarce for interior and body pieces because Pontiac died in 2010 and GM doesn't care about supporting 25-year-old sports cars. The aftermarket is massive, which means every car has been modified badly by at least 3 previous owners. Finding a stock, unmolested example is nearly impossible, and when you do, the owner wants $30,000 because they think rarity equals value. The Trans Am WS6 is a fun car to drive, no question, but it's a terrible financial decision. There you have it, folks. 10 muscle cars that'll drain your retirement fund faster than a casino vacation. From Australian imposters to plastic fantastic disappointments, these are the vehicles that prove horsepower doesn't equal smart money. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next reality check, and check out the video on your screen. Thanks for watching, and remember, just because it's got a V8 doesn't mean it's worth your V8,000.